This episode is brought to you by Jersey Mike's. Another episode of Points in the Paint, our podcast devoted strictly and solely to WCC women's basketball, and we're having a ball. I'm Ann Schatz, joined by my co-host, Mary Murphy, the incomparable Mary Murphy. Mary, we got to start with the sober news of what has been going on in the state of California, in the city of Los Angeles, and nearby areas. The fires that are raging. Now we look at 3 active blazes in terms of the fires that are still going on, burning an area bigger than the city of San Francisco, 40,000 plus acres affected. Reports of over 200,000 people evacuated from their homes and businesses. And it has forced the postponement of many events, including some of our WCC women's basketball games, and on the men's side as well last weekend.
Yeah, and I know I speak for everyone connected with the WCC in any way, and that just our hearts and all of our thoughts go out to the people displaced. And for me, I can't go too many places without talking to someone who knows someone that's been displaced, that's been affected. So highly impactful. I know the winds are going to continue to kick up this week, so we'll just hope for the best and know that at some point there will be better days ahead.
Last Thursday, Portland at Pepperdine, of course, San Diego at LMU, and then Saturday, LMU at Pepperdine. Those games postponed. And what the WCC administration is so adamant about is we will try to get these games rescheduled. That's great. But what we care about is the safety of these teams, of these individuals. And that goes from the athletic department folks all the way down to the folks breaking down video. The safety is the most important thing.
Yeah, I know. We've heard that time and time again from these schools, that's certainly what they're putting forward. And I know most places now are going with remote learning, much like they did during COVID. So just trying to put the best foot forward on this will just continue in the foreseeable future.
We'll keep tabs on that. And Mary, I know you being in the Bay Area, like you said, this hits very, very close to home. And we'll continue to monitor that as to how it affects what we're doing on the basketball side of things. But more importantly, we're right here with you folks in terms of just staying safe. And not much more to say than that, huh?
Yeah, I think everyone's doing the best that they can, for sure.
You bet. It's an awkward segue, but I want to do it anyway. I want to go to what's going on in the WCC as far as the women's standings are concerned. You and I talked after Saturday night's games were completed in the conference and just thought, what on earth is going on here? You can't make it up. Mayor, we have got a logjam of logjams.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about a conference with 18 teams. This is a conference with 11 teams, and 5 of them are tied right now with a 5-2 record. And one in Oregon State is sitting at 4-2. So it's something that's really quite epic and not happening anywhere else in the country. And what this speaks to is the parity in this conference so far this year, the importance of winning at home, how important that is every single weekend. And third, and we haven't talked about this, it'll be a continuing theme, the importance of the tiebreaker. When you're going head to head playing each other every single, you're playing every team twice, how important it is to come away with minimally a split, but to win both those games. And lastly, the importance that health is to each and every team as this season just continues to move forward.
You mentioned the health of every team. We are scoreboard watching, and we are looking for any news that gives us reason to go, oh no. And we got some of that news from USF last week when just this very special Deborah Dos Santos goes down with an ACL, her second of her career. She is, as we are told, out for the season. But for USF to lose this engine, to lose this player who does so much for them, it's almost too much to wrap your head around.
It really is. And when you look at her numbers, 4th in WC in scoring, 4th in rebounding, 10th in field goal percentage, 1st in block shots, and 10th in steals. She impacts what was an undefeated team in conference play on both ends of the floor, and just her style, her inspiration, how she plays, how she approaches the media and her teammates. She's really special. And, I can speak as a former coach that when you lose a player of her, just what she does for her team, it is devastating for the coach, the coaching staff, the player, the team, and just how they move about and go forward in their business. I think Molly Goodenbauer has done a tremendous job of just keeping her eyes forward on what needs to happen and what they need to do. But this weekend's game certainly is just super important after 2 tough losses on the roads. You did one of those games. And what happened? Scoring droughts in the 3rd and 4th quarters, extended minutes without being able to put points on the board, and you just can't do that. And when it happens, that wouldn't have happened with Dos Santos in the lineup, but they've got to find a way to like give up less and find a way to score a little bit more.
And Deb's not the only one injured for Molly Goodenbauer. Last year was a nightmare in terms of the roster being decimated by injuries. It's kind of a repeat, if you will, of that nightmare. But Goodenbauer, she had them in both of the games that they lost last weekend without Dos Santos. And that gives me reason to think, Molly could find a way. I'm not saying to win the whole thing, but to get her club ready mindset-wise and playing with the lean roster.
Well, it's the mantra for all of these teams, and that is get yourself to Vegas in the best position you possibly can, so it lessens the number of games you need to win a championship in that tournament and go to the NCAA tournament. So that's what they will be focused on, but certainly just getting over just the trauma for that individual player and what she means as a senior into your program, but move forward and give others opportunity to just get out there and see what they can do. Big weekend, big Thursday night game for them, no doubt.
I'm going to throw something out at you as a former coach on the highest level, college and WNBA. When you lose a Dos Santos, who does all those things on the floor, and you mentioned the numbers, the stat lines are crazy, but that's your engine, that's your heart and soul. She will be on the bench as much as she can with the club. How important is that going forward for the Dons?
Well, it certainly is important, but it is just like a constant reminder of what you don't have.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah.
it's just a battle of positivity to just stay focused in the moment. And because we all can spend a lot of time in life with the shoulda, woulda, coulda, and what could have been, and talk about that when people are like, well, why are you like, why did we struggle? Well, clearly, you come back with that, but to just stay level, focused, and keep moving forward. It's very challenging, but it's what you've got to do.
All right. So USF still in the thick of things. You mentioned the importance of what is coming up for the Dons, but
Yeah.
really, when you stop and think about it, first 1 through 7 in the conference, every weekend we're scoreboard watching.
Yeah, it's just pick a game and it has impact. I mean, even for San Diego and LMU, last weekend, their game is postponed, and one of those teams would have won their first game. You don't know how that would have propelled them forward. So for every team and every game, we've never seen a conference season like this, and it's only gonna get more intense and more interesting as we continue down the road.
We're the middle of January and we're already just bouncing off the walls with anticipation, which is really fun. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue the podcast with a really special guest, Lisa Fortier, head coach of Gonzaga. Her journey, her club starting to kind of feel a little better about itself. If you were going to get Gonzaga, it probably should have already happened. We'll be back with Lisa in just a second. Welcome back to Points in the Paint. And Mary, delighted to have you with us. And we're excited to do a deep dive into Gonzaga basketball. Before we talk to head coach Lisa Fortier, Mary, help us understand the season that has been unfolding for Gonzaga and where they were and where they are now.
Well, they start conference 1 and 2, and they have a tough loss, that second loss, and then they rip off 4 straight. So as a former coach, my first thought is let's go look at some numbers. And when you look at the numbers, it really tells you a lot. And from non-con to conference, the defense is giving up 8 fewer points a game. Offense is scoring 3 more points a game. So now you're plus 11. You go plus 11, you're going to start winning ball games. And then we talk about their freshman sensation at the point guard position, Allie Turner. Her assist to turnover ratio way up in conference play. Decision making really improved. And suddenly this team, and it's not suddenly because it's a work in progress. And one of the interviews that Lisa did maybe a week ago talked about a muscle getting stronger. Well, this team is a muscle and they're getting stronger. and we're seeing it, and a lot of good things are really starting to roll and put it together, and just looking forward to talking to her about it.
All right. No time like the present. Lisa Fortier, thank you so much for joining us, head coach for Gonzaga. You in your 11th season, all those winning seasons, you're knocking on the door of becoming the winningest ever at Gonzaga, coming off of that historical Sweet 16 run last year. But before we get into hoops, we would love to know how you're feeling, how you're doing. Diagnosed with stage 2, 3 breast cancer last year, subsequent surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. How are you on this day?
I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me. And yep, I'm feeling really good. I'm tired. I've been joking a lot with people that I don't know if it's the season or if it's December or January or if it's cancer. Like it's hard to tell. I think it's probably a little bit of all things is the fatigue, but I'm feeling very good. I'm just on a little bit of medication. My hair's growing back. I'm starting to feel a little bit more like myself, which is great from a cancer and health and wellness perspective. And happy to be around this team and be a part of this season.
Well, you were rocking that cue ball look pretty
I'm ready
damn
for it to
good.
be as long as yours and actually like behave a little bit. It's not behaving. It won't sit down up here.
You can
Oh,
talk
that
to Stacy about that as well.
She's
yeah,
got
there
all
you
the
go.
tips. She
I
keeps
like
telling
that.
me.
Uh, Before I hand this off to Mayor, Coach, I think I read that there were some moments where you reflected with your husband, Craig, also an assistant with you on the staff, perhaps taking this year off. What prompted you to have that sit down moment with yourself and say, nope, I'm going to go for it?
Well, I think there's a couple different things at play. One of them is Yvonne Ejim, to be honest.
Mm,
And, I mean, she sacrificed a lot for our team, and she made the decision to come back here. And it's not just her doing that. There's other people, Mount Ibens and Bree Sallenbein and Esther Little, and we signed Taylor Dalton. She's only here for 1 year, so there's something about those upperclassmen, those seniors, and those people who are going to be around. And if obviously my health was number one priority for us, so we were considering it because we weren't sure how I was going to feel, how long the treatment was going to take. But when we realized the timetable and we got through it and how I was feeling actually throughout, where I wasn't, you know, I by like only only by the grace of God, I was able to tolerate it a lot better than some people. And at that point, we were just thinking that it was good what I was doing, but that I think that I was going to be able to. This is what I love doing. I love to be around the players. I loved coaching basketball, and so if ever there's a time to focus in on what you love and what you're passionate about, then I think now is that time. And so it was how I was feeling. It was, those players and a commitment that they've made to us. And then just again, I never thought I was going to step away from coaching. I don't have that in me right now. So it just seemed like it was all going to work out okay, timing wise.
wonderful. Mayor?
I mean, Coach, we could talk all day about Yvonne and what she's meant to your program. I think the statement that you and your husband went to Paris to the Olympics to watch her with the Canadian team just really says it all. But just in a nutshell, what has she meant to your program, and what have you seen from her this year with a very different team?
Yeah, she's just, she's matured so much, and I think we get an opportunity to watch players who are with you for 4 years, or even two. Those are the most traditional things you see JUCOs, right? Sometimes, or the 4-year players, and now it's changing a little bit, but you get to see them develop. But Yvonne has developed more than most 4-year players or 5-year players. I mean, the way she came in, you guys, at a time where there was a lot of hard conversations being had around the country and the world. And she was a freshman who was willing to dive into those and be a helpful leader in areas that not everybody in our team was able to lead in. And she wasn't a major player for us at that time. I think it was either her freshman or sophomore year was the Jill Townsend shot against BYU, and Ivani had a phenomenal game. Everyone had the flu, but she just has continued to improve in all areas. She's improved as a basketball player, of course, but as a leader, she's changed her entire demeanor. I think when she was younger, she was very up and down. She was inconsistent from an attitude perspective. She was always not negative towards the teammates and the coaches, but towards herself. So she's grown tremendously in that way. And now she's just as steady a person as you can have around your program. And then from a basketball perspective this year, I mean, last year she just had to run the floor. The ball was going to find her its way to you. If you have two Trongs out there most of the time, and you got Brenna out there and Eliza, like those five, the starting lineup last year was just so veteran, and they played so many games together and so well together. And so this year she's had to, enforce her will a little bit. I think she's had to have patience with our team with 8 new players. It's taking some time, and we've been getting better all along, but I think we're starting to get to the point where we look like a pretty formidable basketball team, and it's taken us up until this point really to start to understand some of the concepts. And she's just been very patient, and led the best she could, and really had consistently a good game after a good game. Everyone that we've played, whether we lost by a bunch or whether we were able to win it, or if we lost by a little, she's been very steady, and just she's such a joy to coach, to be honest with you.
Speaking of joys to coach, Ellie Turner and the decision, first of all, to come to Gonzaga, but then just watching her progress and how much it has accelerated over the past couple months or weeks.
Yeah, and she's a fun story because we were actually in Chicago in a back gym watching a kid who ended up going to Texas. And then we saw her teammate who we liked, who was a year ahead of her, who ended up going to Nebraska. And, there was a bunch of pretty good players on that team. And we just, me and Stacey and Craig were all at that game, and we all really liked her. We thought she was a good player. And, so kind of one of those things. A lot of players have fun recruiting stories, right? They're not always this point A to point B. It was kind of, you found him on this back gym at the last game of the night. And we did not know about her at that time. We just knew that they were playing this team from St. Louis. And, she's an only child, and she's kind of, her parents have raised her in a way that's, she still has some only child tenets, but really they've kind of raised her in a way that you're not the center of the universe. Cool, calm, collected. She does not get rattled. She doesn't get sped up very often. She kind of just plays at her pace, and doesn't look too shook if she has a turnover or has a missed shot, or her face is kind of the same all the time. And so it's fun to have freshmen, because freshmen just kind of just play, right? They play free and they don't know any better. But we haven't really had to rely on one in the starting lineup since Courtney Vandersloot, actually. And I think Allie's just done a tremendous job for us, given the circumstances, and she's going to keep getting better.
You start conference at 1-2, Lisa, and that just, I mean, Gonzaga fans don't know what to do with a record under 500. Last year you run the table in WCC play. You knew there'd be more parity this year. Obviously, you lost a ton of talent. When you go to 1-2, did you and your staff sit down and think, all right, what's going on here, and what do we need to tweak? Or were you thinking, this is kind of interesting, we'll be fine, let's not panic? What was going on in your mind, in the staff's mind?
I think a little bit of both of those things, to be honest. I mean, we're trying to be a steadying presence for our team. We're also emotional, and we're also, Jordan, Stacey, Craig, and I have not been in this situation very often, any more often than the fans have. We've been here for a long time, and we haven't found ourselves, thankfully, in a situation like this too often. We haven't had 8 new players and all the things that go with it. We've had the injuries that we didn't expect. So some of those were kind of, we were expecting to be able to play with this lineup or these players, and then that changed. So we've tried to be calm, but at the same time we wanted to be introspective. And all along throughout our non-conference, which was very up and down as well, we talked about, I heard Sam Presti give a nice talk about just flipping every page, and that you have to flip every page. You can't skip pages. Like, this is part of the process. And this is the first year we've had such a heavy process group, because they are so new, whether they're young or just new to us or just haven't in a new role. And so I think that we're trying to figure out, all right, are we doing the right things? How can we tweak them? And this is fine. San Francisco is good. Oregon State is good. It wasn't like those 2 losses were bad losses necessarily, because those 2 teams are going to do a great job in our conference. They've continued to, and they're also well coached and different too than they've been in the past. So I think that trying to just stay here, maybe a little bit of this, but not to be so high or so low on anything, is the learning point for us as coaches and as players this year.
Coach, just to wrap up, I've got to ask about the kids, Marcus, Calvin, and Quincy. Give me a 30-second update on 48 children. How are they doing? What are they up to?
We have a freshman boys basketball point guard who Marcus is, just freshman boys basketball. Holy smokes. They're just foul and turn it over and then sprint the other way and then try to block the shot and then get back and make a lay-in and then airball a free throw. So we're dealing with that with freshman basketball. We have a 7th grade basketball player who with Cal, and he's doing great on a new team where he's having to have a different role and expand his game a lot, which has been fun to see. And then we're still coaching Quincy's little 4th grade basketball team. So me and Craig have practice tonight in between all the other stuff. So it's a busy household right now.
So,
I guess. Lisa, with all the busyness, thank you so much for taking the time. And it's really neat to see you guys hit a stride. Injuries, you're starting to get some folks back. Your veterans are doing their thing. Your freshmen's playing like a veteran. Continued success. This is when rubber meets the road. This is when it's important. So good luck to the Zags as we hit the meat of the conference season.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Lisa, out of here. It's time to practice. Mara and I will be right back with another segment of Points in the Paint. Welcome back to Points in the Paint. We're going to bring this train home to the station with a tip of the cap to a few players that had outstanding weekends. We're going to start, Mayor, with Santa Clara's Olivia Pollard. Oh, she was a beast.
she sure was. And you're having a great weekend when you're named Player of the Week. And she was named that once again. And just playing like almost every minute of every game. She's first in minutes played in the conference, second in block shots, sixth in scoring and rebounding, ninth in field goal percentage. Just an outstanding weekend, and they need those kind of numbers from her. But boy, she is just setting the standard and doing a great job. And the 6'3" senior out of Australia, we saw her play a couple of weeks ago, and she's just picking up where she left off.
Okay. Tip of the cap now to Portland's Trista Hull, the Boise State transfer against USF Saturday. Didn't score a lot, but oh boy, did she impact this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you can be a superstar and put up big numbers or maybe not score a lot, but you come in and you do other things. And what this 6'2" senior did was rebound the heck. I think she had 10 rebounds, 6 block shots, 2 steals in 26 minutes. So a dominating performance on the defensive end, which is what you need sometimes. It's not always about scoring the points. You might have other people that can do that, but just find a way to contribute in a big time way. And she did just that.
You know, Portland loses Lucy Cochran, the rim protector of all time for the Portland Pilots. And in comes Trista Hull. And she's not Cochran per se in terms of volume of blocks, but boy, is she doing the job, isn't she?
No doubt. And those are some great numbers.
All right. SMC, St. Mary's needed a bounce back victory. Emily Foy against Pacific off the bench to help deliver the goods.
Yeah, and you're saying the key words for me, and that's off the bench. 18 points, just an outstanding job shooting the ball from 3, 4 of 8, but a couple of rebounds, a couple of assists, a couple of steals. The sophomore out of Australia, you don't have to always be a starter to come in and have a major impact. So we're showing superstar. We're talking about someone who's doing it at the defensive end and having high impact, and then someone coming off the bench and giving her team a huge lift.
All right, we're going to revisit the standings one more time, Mayor, because that's going to set us up nicely in terms of games to watch this coming weekend. So let's revisit standings. Not only important for an outright WCC regular season title, but as you always point out, seedings for that postseason WCC tournament.
Right. And if you want to be repetitive, tiebreaker,
Yeah.
because with this many teams playing as closely as they are, know that it's going to come down to who did you beat? How many times did you beat them? Did you beat the teams above you? Did you beat the teams below you? So every opportunity to go out there and get a win is absolutely important. And we've got huge games coming up for everybody. But you look at those standings. I mean, we don't have an undefeated team anymore, but we sure have a lot of really good teams.
Heck yeah. All right. Games to watch. You saw the standings. You understand how things can just turn on a dime. What's your first pick out of the chutes? Games to watch.
Well, I've got a tie because I think Washington State at USF.
Yep.
Can USF have a bounce back? That's what they need. They don't want to lose 3 straight. Washington State has been very good. They've been a little up and down. They're a team that, is not shooting free throws well, but this is going to be a terrific game. And then my second must-see is certainly Portland at Gonzaga. to play already 2 important games within 14 days of each other. They played on the 2nd of January. They're playing again 6 o'clock at Gonzaga on Thursday night. It's going to be epic. It always is between those two. So those 2 Thursday night games are just sort of must see.
And just a little caveat, Gonzaga has now won 32 consecutive regular season games against Portland. This last affair was very, very close in the Rose City, one of the closest conference games between these two clubs in about 5 years. So it's going to be bow, wow, wow time when you go to the kennel this coming Thursday, huh?
Yeah, and even with the sort of the ups and downs that this Gonzaga team has had throughout this season already, the crowds have stayed consistent. They're always above 5,000. They just pack that place. The enthusiasm, they're going to get after it. It's going to be a great environment.
You mentioned the fact that Pepperdine, because those games were canceled last weekend, denied a chance to win, another game in conference play. They'll go to St. Mary's. I think this is a game that's very compelling to me because I think Pepperdine's hungry, and I think St. Mary's continues to prove that they belong in the conversation.
Well, they're going to have to keep winning to prove that they belong in the conversation, but especially you're at home, you're at 5-2, you're sitting surrounded by all those other 5-2 teams, and then the 4-2 team in Oregon State. So every time someone comes into your gym, it's going to be important to play well Thursday, certainly for the Gales.
And you mentioned the Gales and being at home, including this game coming up. 2 of the next 3 for them are at home. And these are games on paper that you like to think are winnable if you're a Gales fan. It all starts with that game against Pepperdine. How about Saturday? Anything jump out at you for Saturday?
Well, certainly one of the tougher road trips because Portland goes to Gonzaga and then they turn around on Saturday and they go to Oregon State. So they're going to see 2 great crowds. We know they're going to have a great crowd in Corvallis as well. So a tough weekend. And we know that matchup between the Portland coach and the Oregon State coach, always interesting.
You betcha. All right, so we will have another loaded weekend, which will set us up beautifully for next week. We're going to say so long as far as this edition of Points in the Paint is concerned. Mara, thanks so much for joining me and being the lead sled dog. And everybody out there, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.